Hi everyone, my name is Gail Tucker and I am recording this evening my video discussion post. I think that this is a really interesting subject to start out with. Uh, we are supposed to, in this post, talk about the secular view of psychopathology versus the Christian worldview of psychopathology. So psychopathology, to me at least, I'll explain it kind of in nursing terms because I have more years as a nurse than as a counselor. So I'll try to make that gap a little bit closer here. When I studied nursing many years ago, we had a class called Anatomy and Physiology where we just learned what our parts are, where they're located, what their names are, and how they would normally work. Then we took a class called Pathophysiology. And this was the class where we learned the disease process. So we already knew the names of the parts and what they were supposed to do. And then the next class, Pathophysiology, was where we learned how things went awry, if you will, how the disease process worked in these various organs. So I'm taking this jump to then the word psychopathology. So pathology meaning, again, something abnormal, if you will, and psycho meaning the mental health component of it. So although we've already talked about it in our courses thus far, normal psychology, now we're going to look at the abnormal psychology or psychopathology. So when we talk about secular and Christian worldviews, the secular version is pretty familiar with me, and so certainly not a subject matter expert, but I'd like to speak to that from my days gone past as an emergency room nurse. So in those days, I was not yet a Christian. I was what we call trauma drama ER nurse. So we would run to every trauma, everything that had a lot of drama, a lot of blood, a lot of action to it, and our adrenaline would just run so high. And that's what we worked ER for. But unfortunately, in the emergency department, we found out that also people came in with mental health problems. The mental health cases were the things that most of us did not want to work with. We had an extreme bias to those cases. Often, our mental health customers that came in were rowdy. They often had alcohol and drugs involved in their case as well. They were trying to hit us. They were trying to hit everybody. They were trying to run around and not stay in their room. We could not get an accurate history from them to help the doctors along. We often had to sit with them one-on-one, and we'd be stuck in a room. We called it stuck in a room for hours on end, trying to find a placement for them, which could take hours to days. So that was the bad role to get for your shift. You wanted to be over with the MVCs, the motor vehicle crashes or something, more sexy. So that was our view of it. And we were very biased because they were time consuming, they were combative, and it wasn't what we signed up to do ER for, we thought. So now, flash forward about 30 years, and now I'm an addiction counselor and I'm studying to be a clinical mental health counselor. My view has completely changed, but I certainly remember back in the day when I was neither a Christian nor was I oriented to people with mental health problems also being humans and having an actual pathological issue. Then I remember those days, that extreme bias. And that's how I would describe often the secular view of mental health in a lot of our hospitals with a lot of our providers. They often, even when I was a nurse practitioner later on, I could not wait to hand these people off, to give the referral and say, I want nothing else to do with this. And that was not from me being mean, but me not knowing anything about it or how to handle these people or the medications. So now flash forward several years to when I became a Christian, and I found out that, you know what? God created everybody perfectly. Perfectly, whether they have schizophrenia, whether they are blind, whether they have a big slash on their face from birth, they were created perfectly the way God wanted them created. And I found some things from King James that I'll read surrounding mental health and mental illness. So Jeremiah 33:6 says, "Behold, I will bring it health and cure, and I will cure them, and I will reveal unto them the abundance of peace and truth." In in 2 Timothy 1:7, "For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and sound mind." So I would say back in the days when I was an ER nurse, me and my ER buddies, we worked from actually a place of fear. Um, More so than actually not wanting to work with these people. We did not know what we were doing. So we were working from a place of fear, certainly not from a place of understanding and not with a Christian worldview, because I would say we did not have very much understanding at all. The other item in Jeremiah, it says, "Behold, I will bring it health and cure," meaning that God can heal and cure anybody with prayer, with the person's belief in Jesus, with them saying, "Hey, Jesus is my Savior," um, and will you bless me? Will you make me help me be your servant here on earth? And how better can I serve you? Well, possibly it's in the role they are now, and possibly it is to heal them. It is whatever God's decision is, because He makes all of us perfect. So I found a study. I don't know how to say this person's last name. AI and Al. They looked at character strengths and deep connections following the Hurricane Katrina and Rita in teenage volunteers. And I picked this out because I actually was a volunteer back as an ER nurse. I ran down to Louisiana and I volunteered for Hurricane Katrina. And it was the most exciting thing I've ever done, but it also was the most impactful as far as actually seeing some things that I can never unsee. I don't believe that at that time I had the spirituality within me to help me deal with that. So this article was really interesting. They looked at these teenagers, which we would think had probably never been exposed to anything like this, but yet they went down to volunteer, and they looked at their resiliency and then later their symptoms of depression. So what they saw is that within the minorities, which they found actually had a deeper connection with God, they actually named their Savior as Jesus, and they named their religion as Christian. They actually had a deeper connection, and they had a higher resilience and lower symptoms of depression, and taking a little bit of a leap, but saying that we assume that that possibly could be from their Christian background. So the other thing that it showed is that white volunteers, rather than being as motivated by their Christian worldview, their need to go help mankind, to help somebody in need and show mercy, the white volunteers that were surveyed worked from more of an altruism. They did definitely want to help. They wanted to share their time, but they had less of a Christian worldview, which is interesting. And they showed moderate levels of depression as compared to the minorities. So there's several aspects to that study, but I just wanted to bring out that one of the secular versus those with the Christian worldview, when they're actually impacted with something and then expected to have at the least depressive symptoms, and what their resilience and coping was with that situation. So this is the end of my video discussion. I really appreciate you taking a few minutes to take a look at it. I will post my references on the site for you on the discussion thread. Thank you.